Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I have another video for you, something a little bit different, more of kind of a topic video, something that I haven't done in quite a while, inspired partially by some videos I've done before, but also this was, I think, more so spurred by a recent question that I got that I answered in my recent Q&A video, which asked about some of my favorite videos that I've done in the past. And one of the answers that I gave is that about three and a half years ago, I made some videos about music that I like that was inspired in some way by books or authors. And in those videos, I did one about fantasy and its relation to heavy metal music, which is the genre that I have been focusing on in those videos. And then also a video about the connection between H.P. Lovecraft and heavy metal music. And so I was kind of thinking about those and thinking it'd been a while since I've made those. It'd be fun to revisit that topic again. And so for this, I decided that I'm going to do a video talking about 5 of my favorite albums that are directly inspired by written works. I do have more than 5 of these that I could talk about. So if you enjoy this video, let me know if you want a part 2. I probably could do one. But these are just 5 favorites of mine that I've really enjoyed over the years that are in some way inspired by a book. And so this one's going to be a little bit different from the usual. I'll be talking more about music, but I'm also going to be talking about the stories that these albums are all inspired by. These are all metal albums because that is the genre that I predominantly listen to. But I do have like a nice variety of styles here represented as well. And I'll be playing clips from all of these and things like that, assuming that I'm able to due to copyright type stuff, but I'm going to try my best to get that in there so that you can kind of see what some of these sound like. So I do have 5 albums here. A couple of them are based on actual novels. A couple are based on stories that members of the bands actually wrote and things like that. There's a lot of metal is actually inspired by literary works in some form or another, which is something that I think is really cool. And yeah, so starting off, I have one of the most prominent ones, I would say, in the metal genre, which is going to be Nightfall in Middle-earth by Blind Guardian. So Nightfall in Middle-earth is an album based on the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, which is, for those who may not be aware, kind of the backstory of the world showcased within The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Blind Guardian is a power metal band. They've been around, I think, since the 80s. They've got a lot of albums out. In fact, most, if not all of their albums are inspired in some way by fiction. They don't all have full concept albums like this one. This one is pretty much only inspired by the Silmarillion, but a lot of their albums will take inspiration from lots of places. So they have songs about the Wheel of Time. They have songs about, of course, Lord of the Rings outside of this album. They have songs about The Witcher, Game of Thrones, I believe. They even have a song on a recent album inspired by the Stormlight Archive. And different things like that. So they take their inspiration from a lot of different places, but this album specifically is based on the Silmarillion. Does an interesting job of conveying aspects of that story through both lyrics as well as a number of interludes that are short and sweet that kind of help to convey the story and the atmosphere that they're presenting. It's an album it's fun, it's energetic, it's definitely feels appropriate for this sort of story. It's got kind of a folky kind of feel to it at times. Just the way that the music is written feels like it fits that kind of fantasy story, and definitely has that sense as well of epicness to it at times. It's not quite like a top tier album for me. I really enjoy it, but Blind Guardian's one of those bands that I enjoy from time to time, but they're not an all-time favorite for me. But this is still a very notable album for something like this, and it is an album that I think is really, really good, and I would recommend it. Next one I'm going to talk about is kind of shifting in a very different direction, both in terms of subject matter and in terms of genre. This is going to be Aeons of Oblivion by Distant. So Distant is a deathcore band, which some of their stuff has been also classified as like down-tempo or things like that, which is kind of taking deathcore type stylings and kind of making it slower and things like that. This album especially, I would say, very much focuses into that sound. But this is a very aggressive, very heavy style of music. And this album specifically is one of the ones that I mentioned inspired by something that the band members wrote. They actually have novels that are detailing the storyline behind their albums that they sell as part of their merchandise, which I have actually read the book that this album is based upon. And I have a review for that on my channel if you're interested. But this album, I think, fits, having now read the story, fits the story extremely well. The story itself is very dark. It's dealing with this character named the Tyrant, who's this kind of leader of almost like an underworld type of place. And it's very dark, it's very atmospheric. The story is, but then the music also is like that. It's very dark. It really kind of captures that sense of doom and gloom in it, but also that sense of aggression and things like that this style of music tends to focus on, but also the story kind of does, in the sense that it is a very punishing setting, I guess. So it matches the story really well. It's a very interesting album to me. It's one that I've enjoyed a lot over the years since it came out. And it's a fun one for me as someone who's into this kind of music. For other people who aren't, it may be a little much, but I really enjoy this one. Kind of keeping with the heavier theme here, we have the next one, which is going to be 7 Crowns and 7 Seals by Sulphur Aeon. So out of the albums I'm discussing in this video, this is the least directly influenced by a book, but it's based upon the works of H.P. Lovecraft. And Sulphur Aeon themselves are a blackened death metal band. So for other bands of this genre, if you're familiar with the likes of Behemoth, for example, or bands of a similar nature, they're kind of like that. And this is an album that I really love. This is one of my personal favorites that I'm mentioning here in this video. It really, really well matches the vibe of Lovecraftian horror. I think there's a lot of Lovecraftian bands out there, and these are one of the most prevalent, I would say. But what I really like about Sulphur Aeon is that musically they're really interesting. They have a really good style to them where they're very dark and heavy, but also quite melodic at the same time. I think that's really well showcased on this album with a lot of the songs. They have these melodies in them that are in one part almost beautiful, but at the same time very brooding. And I really enjoy that about the way they write their music, and it matches the subject matter very well, which is conveyed through their lyrics. And what I like about their lyrics is this is a band that doesn't just tell the stories that H.P. Lovecraft wrote, but instead it writes their lyrics as if those stories are real. So the lyrics are directly referencing all of these greater beings, and it almost comes across like the hymns of a Lovecraftian cult in a sense, and that's something I really like. I love that part of their music because it feels so immersed into the Lovecraftian, not only in the sense of its sound, and it sounds like something that would very easily fit those kinds of stories, but the lyrics themselves kind of convey that in the sense that this is almost a form of worship towards these greater beings. And I really like that about it as well. It's a really interesting way to go about this kind of subject matter. And not only that, but just the music itself I really enjoy, and it fits the Lovecraft stories very well. And again, very dark, very atmospheric, but also at times very beautiful, at least in my opinion, when it comes to some of the melodies that are being shown in their music. And to me, that really fits. So I really enjoy their stuff, and I really enjoy that album in particular. The next album that I have here is kind of going back towards something like Blind Guardian that's a little more accessible so for those of you who are not into the more extreme side of metal, might be a little more approachable for some of you. And this is the album A Christmas Carol by Majestica. Majestica is a power metal band, and one that I really enjoy. They started as a band called Rainseed back in the 2000s, but have since changed their name to Majestica during the 2010s. This is also a band that, if you are familiar with the band Sabaton, one of their previous guitarists, Tommy Johansson, is the vocalist and the guitarist and the primary songwriter for this band as well. This is a power metal band like Blind Guardian, but very different stylistically, I would say, especially in this album. This leans much more into the epicness and the bombast and very heavy orchestration, lots of choirs, much more, I would say, uplifting in a lot of ways. To me, this is like one of the most fun albums to listen to, especially, of course, during the Christmas season. This is very directly based on the story A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, in which the entire lyrics of this album tell the story of that novel, of Ebenezer Scrooge and his visits with the three ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future, and all of that kind of thing. Again, very much has that big, epic, fun feeling. Really gets across the Christmas vibe as well, both in terms of the actual instrumentation, where it uses, a lot of instruments that you might associate with like traditional, like Christmas music and things like that. Like when I've heard a lot of Christmas music, it uses like some horns and things like that, a lot of bells. Just things that kind of get across that Christmassy feeling, but on top of that, the actual melodies that are used in this, are also very Christmas-based. So you not only have the Christmas-based lyrics, but you have melodies from traditional Christmas music here. For example, there's a song called Ghost of Marley, which is, of course, dealing with Ebenezer Scrooge's initial encounter with Marley's ghost, which uses melodies from Good King Wenceslas and Deck the Halls heavily in its music. The entire chorus is basically a minor key version of Deck the Halls and things like that, which is really cool. And then the song A Christmas Story uses in its chorus the melody for O Come All Ye Faithful. And those kinds of melodies are sprinkled all throughout this album. If you're a big fan of Christmas music, which admittedly I am, then it's a super fun listen just to see the way that they weave all these different melodies together. And on top of that, tell this really fun story with an album that musically is just a ton of fun to listen to. This is one that every Christmas season I listen to at least a handful of times. It's one of those albums that even like when it's not like December, I like to listen to every so often because it's just such a great album. And I would say out of the ones on this list is probably the most generally accessible. So if you're not a metalhead, you'll probably still find something in this to appreciate, I would say. Especially because even though it does have the metal elements of, the guitars and the drums, it also has that heavy orchestration that gives you something else to listen to that is really well done, and I really enjoy about it. Plus, Tommy Johansson, one of the best metal vocalists of all time, if you ask me. So, great album in general, highly recommend it. The final album that I'm going to talk about in this video is another one that is based on an original story by a band member, and that is going to be Winter's Gate by Insomnium. So this album is based upon a short story written by the vocalist and bass player of the band Niilo Sevonen, which is itself called Winter's Gate, which is actually included in the album booklet, like the lyric book, if you buy a physical copy of the album, which I have somewhere, but I don't have it for this video. But I have bought that album physically, and I have read the story. It's a really good story, basically dealing with this, I believe it's a mother and child traveling through a wintry landscape, and things kind of just not going very well. It's a very gloomy album. This is within the style of melodic death metal, and so kind of taking that more aggressive side of metal, but then throwing in a lot of melody, a lot of atmosphere, especially with a band like Insomnium. They have a very distinctive sound that has such a strong sense of atmosphere and melancholy, and they're one of those bands that just, even if you were to strip it down to like basic, like piano or something, is just some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard, and this album is no exception to that. And another really cool thing about this album specifically, outside of it being just a beautiful album to listen to, outside of lyrically being based on a story, is that it is all one long song. It is one 40-minute long song split up into, I think, 7 parts. But throughout the album, you have callbacks to different melodies that were used earlier, or things that are make it feel very cohesive and interesting. And not only that, but this is also debatably probably in my top 3 albums of all time. I absolutely love it. Uses a lot of beautiful melodies in it. It adds a lot of extra elements like synthesizer elements in the background to kind of add to that atmosphere, and again very well matches the story that is being presented within the lyrics and within the original short story, in that, you know, it just has this feeling of coldness and gloominess, and just really gets across the feeling, I think, that the story is also trying to convey. And so, just a great album in general. Again, one of my favorite albums of all time. Highly would recommend it to all of you if you are interested in this kind of music. And even if you're not, I would recommend giving it a try. And yeah, you know, the vocals are like that death metal-y, growly kind of vocals, but if you look past that and focus on the music, it is some of the most beautiful music, I think, that is out there in the metal genre. So that is pretty much it for this one. These are 5 albums that I would say not only are excellent, but are also based upon literature in some form. Like I said earlier, I do also have more that I could mention. So if you're interested in seeing a part 2 to this, let me know in the comments, and I will definitely do so, because I have at least another like 5 or 10 albums that I could talk about. So if you're interested in seeing more, let me know. If you've heard any of these before, let me know if you what you think of them. If you've read any of the original stories, if you have any particular recommendations for other albums that I didn't mention here that are based on books, whether they're metal or not, leave those in the comments as well. I'd love to hear about them. And of course, there's plenty of others out there that I could mention, or even ones that I have not heard before. So if you have any recommendations, leave them down below. So that is pretty much it for this one. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.